Welcome back. My name is Candace Sanderson, and I don't know about you, but my intro video on this episode left me scratching for an answer. This is an intro to something that I learned from my Monroe Institute group on WhatsApp. Last week, someone posted a related video, and when I watched it, I literally laughed out loud. The premise of the video was profound. It was a valuable lesson about life. But the video showed fleas in a jar. Yes, fleas, those pesky little insects that sometimes invade our four-legged friends and leave them scratching all day. In the video, we see a close-up of a researcher who empties hundreds of fleas in the bottom of a glass jar. They immediately start jumping above the jar's opening before the researcher quickly puts a lid on the jar. So now we have a jar full of fleas, contained fleas. The researchers keep the fleas in this jar undisturbed for 3 days. Apparently, fleas can jump over 100 times their height, which is quite a feat. But guess what? These fleas that were locked in the jar for 3 days, something changed during their containment. They learned not to jump beyond the barrier, the lid of the jar. Once the lid was removed, they did not jump out. This newfound jumping limitation, well, it is not temporary. For the rest of their flea lives, they will never jump beyond the limits they learned while in that glass jar. This brings so many questions to mind. Because they did not jump beyond a specific height for 3 days, maybe they thought they could no longer do so. And after a few days, those memories of jumping 100 times their height, maybe those memories became legends, fantasy. Maybe, just maybe, in the past, they never did jump 100 times their height. Maybe that was all just a big fairy tale. But wait, the story gets even more intriguing and with long-term significance. Now, if it's not mind-boggling enough when these fleas reproduce, guess what? Their offspring never jump beyond the limits set by that jar. That is when I began laughing so hard. This was such a fascinating yet profound lesson that we can learn from all things fleas in a jar. So, what does this tell us? Let's extrapolate and generalize. Let's look at our belief systems. So many of our beliefs are so deeply embedded that we do not even see them as beliefs. We see them as laws. We see them as truth. It's just the way things are. If we think we can no longer jump higher than a certain height, we will not. We'll let our neighbors know that. And when Mr. Flea next door says he remembers stories, that great granddaddy flea who could jump over 100 times his height, we laugh. We say, oh, those are just legends. Those are myths. Those are just stories from long ago, and they have nothing to do with truth and with who we are today. When little Susie Flea and little Johnny Flea are born, we tell them what a beautiful world this is. It is as wide and as tall as a jar. When Susie and Johnny want to know what's beyond these barriers that we've told them about, well, we don't have the answers. We just know that we cannot jump beyond a certain height, and neither could our parents. But we did hear those stories about our great grandmothers and great grandfathers who did. But after all, those are just stories, aren't they? So we go about our lives limiting ourselves, but we don't see that in real time. We're just living our lives the best way that we know how. We don't have dreams or aspirations beyond the lid of that jar, the lid that actually has not existed for generations. But we can see out. We can see that area. It's a little blurry, a little fuzzy. But after all, it is so nice and comfortable where we are. Why would we want to mess that up? That's life. That's how things are. Why aspire to do or to be more than what we are? Get real. But one day, one member of the flea family starts to see things differently. They're living within a glass jar with the lid that doesn't exist, but that's a minor detail. Little Susan Allison Flea, Susie a Flea, gets curious. She starts to question everything. Now, her parents may use a different word than question. They think she's arguing. But little Susie proposes these what ifs. What if there's another world out there, just outside our reach? What if we just jump a little higher? What would we find? Now, little Susie Flea, she is a smart one, and she gets all of her friends together and they cook up a plan. Yes, a plan to escape. Now, it's a little too complicated for me to understand. You see, the brain of a flea might be small, but that does not mean it is limited. At least, not the brain of Susan Allison Flea. Nope. Susie a Flea is creative. She is curious, and she does not let other fleas' opinions dictate her behavior. Long story short, she had all her friends stand on each other's backs, and she took a running start and she scampered up the pile of her friends. When she reached the top, then she jumped. No, 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 what is she doing? Her friends thought. But little Susie escaped. She was flying. Something magical hit Susie a Flea, and she instinctively turned her broadside into this unknown force, and it propelled her forward. She had never felt anything like this in her life. Some sort of invisible hand moved her faster than she had ever moved in her life. Later, she learned this mysterious force was called wind. Susie Flea learned how to use this and other invisible forces to move. Within a very short time, and in the lifespan of a flea, that would be extremely quick for us as humans, Susie learned to work with these other invisible forces, like gravity. She learned how to manipulate her body to interact with these magical energies until she was jumping higher and higher until she reached beyond what those legends her great grandparents had talked about. She jumped over 100 times her height. And she did this without thinking. She did this by doing. The thrill of little Susie's laughter was heard from jar to jar until it faded away. Oh my, what had she done? Now, back home in Jarland, her friends scattered quickly and hopped home and straight to bed. Man, oh man, were they scared. Best hide away in case someone starts asking about Susie. But little Susie was talked about for generations. Susie the Great, Susie the Flea who could fly. And some nights, when all was quiet, her friends would sneak out to the boundaries of Jar Town and look up. Every once in a while, when all was quiet, they would hear the whisper of Susie's laughter. As it got closer, their little flea hearts pounded in their little chests. And if they were lucky, they would see Susie a flea as she flew by like a streak of lightning, laughing all the way. Little Susie the Brave had just brought a lesson for all who were ready to learn, all who were ready to change. When you define your life by the limitations you perceive, you become just that, limited. Look beyond what defines you. Operate outside of your comfort zone, and you just might realize there's a whole new world that surrounds you, just waiting for you to take that first jump. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Wisdom surrounds us all day if we just allow ourselves to find it. Be kind, work together, don't limit yourself, and get ready to explore. Feel free to subscribe, share, comment, and like. Until next time, goodbye.